Nearly everyone thinks they'll be rich one day. The student with no money, the worker living paycheck to paycheck, the person buried in debt. Somehow, they all believe their future will be different, richer, better, more successful. And here's the crazy part. Without this belief, society might completely fall apart, because the reason we think we'll be rich one day is the same reason humans built cities, started businesses, crossed oceans, and kept going when logic said they shouldn't. This has much less to do with money than you think, and much more to do with how the human brain survives uncertainty. Here's how universal this is. Researchers have found that about 80% of humans show what they call optimism bias. 80% across every country, every income level, every age group. Rich people have it, poor people have it, young people have it, people in their 60s have it just as much as people in their 20s. This isn't a personality trait. It's a brain feature, and it was built into us for a reason. Here's something fascinating. The odds of winning a major lottery jackpot are about 1 in 300 million, almost zero. And yet, every week millions of people buy tickets, not because they're bad at math, but because when they imagine winning, their brain doesn't experience it as unlikely. It experiences it as possible. And possible feels almost the same as probable. So why does the brain see the future so optimistically? Here's the real answer. Researchers at UCL discovered something remarkable. When humans learn new information about the future, their brains are not balanced recorders. Good news gets absorbed fully. Bad news gets quietly ignored. Your brain isn't trying to find the truth. It's trying to keep you moving. Your neurons actually encode positive information more strongly than negative information. It's not that you choose to ignore bad news. Your brain is literally built to absorb less of it. Here's a real finding. People know that almost half of marriages end in divorce, but when asked about their own marriage, almost no one thinks theirs will fail. Same statistic, completely different when applied to themselves. Because the brain doesn't say half of all marriages fail, including probably mine. It says half of all marriages fail, but mine is different. Two biologists, Ajit Varki and Danny Brower, spent years studying this question, and their conclusion was stunning. They argued that human evolution itself might have stopped without optimism bias. Here's why. Humans are the only creatures who can fully imagine their own future, their own aging, their own decline, their own death. A deer doesn't lie awake worrying about retirement. Humans do. And if we felt the full weight of that knowledge every day, we would be paralyzed, unable to get out of bed, unable to work, to plan, to build families. So the brain developed a defense, a built-in filter. That makes the future feel more hopeful than it statistically deserves. Not as a trick, as a survival tool. Here's something that will make you think. People with mild depression don't have this filter. Their brains process the future more accurately, without the optimistic gloss. Psychologists call this depressive realism. In study after study, mildly depressed people often made more realistic predictions than optimistic people. And here's the uncomfortable part. Seeing the world clearly without the optimism bias is associated with depression, which means the optimism bias isn't just a glitch. It might be essential for basic human functioning. Without it, the world looks exactly as uncertain as it actually is. And that is very hard to live with. Here's a number that changes how you see this. Optimists are 14% less likely to die between the ages of 50 and 65, and 30% less likely to die from cardiac arrest. The belief that the future will be better literally keeps you alive longer. This isn't soft psychology. This is biology. Open Instagram for 5 minutes. You'll see entrepreneurs becoming millionaires at 22. Investors turning $1,000 into $100,000. People retiring before 30. Your brain sees those stories and quietly thinks, maybe that's me next. It was always there, but social media turned up the volume. Every day, every scroll. More fuel for the belief that wealth is just around the corner. So here's the problem. The optimism bias is genuinely useful for survival, but it creates a very specific problem with money. Because when you believe your future will be better, saving for the future feels less urgent. Why sacrifice today when future you will definitely have more? This is why people don't save for retirement. This is why debt doesn't feel as threatening as it should. This is why the person buried in bills still buys the lottery ticket. Not stupidity, not laziness, just a brain doing exactly what it evolved to do, making the future feel more manageable than the present. Here's what this all means. The belief that you'll be rich one day is not a character flaw. It's not delusion. It's the brain protecting you from the full weight of uncertainty. And it works. It keeps you moving. It keeps you trying. It keeps you alive. But here's the line between healthy optimism and a money trap. Healthy optimism says the future can be better, so I'll work toward it today. The money trap says the future will be better, so I don't need to do anything today. One uses optimism as fuel, the other uses it as an excuse. The belief that you'll be rich one day is not the problem. What you do with that belief is everything. The future doesn't get better because you believe it will. It gets better because you act before it does. If this video changed how you think about your own future, tell someone who needs to hear this. Because the brain that kept humanity alive for 200,000 years was never designed to read a savings account, but you can teach it to.